Jann Rose. And this week on Walnut Creek in Focus, we visit Walnut Acres School, where there is training on earthquake preparedness. We also return to the Civic Arts Gallery to remind you of the exhibit Bay Area Bronze, which is there through the middle of March. And the Chamber of Commerce is presenting its annual Casino Royale. It's a Mardi Gras theme this year. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's no secret that state and federal tax systems have changed. In response to the overhaul of federal taxes in 1986, the legislature and the governor changed the California tax code to minimize the differences in the two systems. This year, 6 million Californians should be able to use the new, simpler, short form. Be smart. Get started early and understand the system so that you only pay what you owe or get the full refund that you're entitled to.
We're here at Walnut Acres School, where an earthquake preparedness project is underway, and it is a service provided by the Junior League of Oakland East Bay, and with me is Carol Weinstra, who is the coordinator of this project. It's a project that's been provided to the community by the Junior League for how long?
About 5 years.
And what's your goal and your target?
To bring earthquake preparedness and awareness to the elementary school children in Alameda and Contra Costa County.
And how many schools have you been able to cover, or just kind of in round figures over the 5-year period? And what's your next step?
I don't know a total, I'm sorry, Jan, for 5 years. I would say that in one school year, we try to educate between 12 and 15 schools from September to May of any one school year.
And do you always have more requests than you can fill?
We have in the past. Recently, we have made a thrust to educate the children in Contra Costa County, and we would very much like to have the opportunity to take this program to other schools in the Central County area.
Now, do you contact the schools, you meaning the league, and apprise them of what's available to them, or do they call you with requests?
They normally call us. In this instance, my daughters are students here at Walnut Acres, and I knew how beneficial the program was, and I thought it was real important for the earthquake program to be brought to Walnut Acres. So I was instrumental in getting the Parent Faculty Club to support and fund the education of trainers, parent trainers here at Walnut Acres. But normally a school would contact the Junior League office in Lafayette, and we would make arrangements to do on-site training and facilitation in the classrooms.
So the league provides the trainers and the specialized materials, and a sponsoring organization then funds the handbooks and
That's correct.
What would it cost a school?
That's correct. The training is provided free of charge by the Junior League. The manuals are $7 a piece. Basically, that's the charge to reproduce the printed material. The Junior League is a nonprofit organization, and we're a training organization. So our goal is to train people in earthquake preparedness.
And here at Walnut Acres, how many parents were involved?
We trained 14 parent volunteers. These are all parents of students here at the school. They took approximately 5 hours of training over a 2-week period, and then were given the handbooks to study. And each parent will teach 3 or 4 classes. We're a large school. We have 25 classrooms, K through 5.
And does it start with kindergarten?
Yes, it does. We have a curriculum for kindergarten through 5th grade. Actually, the curriculum is basically the same for all the elementary school grades. The difference is the level of sophistication. The earth is explained to kindergartners that it's like a hot tube of toothpaste. When we get to 5th grade, we use much more sophisticated methods of explaining the geology of earthquakes.
And what are the components?
We start the lesson by what we call the buy-in, where we ask the children to tell us about any experience they've had with earthquakes. We call these tremor tales. And in the lower grades, we find that even if a child has not been in an earthquake, they suddenly start to imagine that they have been. Then we follow up with a geology lesson where we give them the basic components of what causes an earthquake and what science speculate the different types of earthquakes and how they are caused.
Good morning. My name is Mrs. Odney. This is Mrs. Dawson. And how many of you know why you're here today? Marie?
Training for earthquakes.
We're going to try to learn something about earthquakes, aren't we? We're going to do three things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the geology of an earthquake, and that's what's actually happening to the earth during an earthquake. The second thing we're going to do is talk about awareness, and that's being aware of things that might happen during an earthquake, hazards, what's happening to the earth, and all kinds of things that you should be paying attention to. And the third thing we're going to talk about is preparedness, which is what you can do when the earth starts to move. How many of you have been in an earthquake? You many. What was it like? How did it feel? Chris?
Well, when I was at Heather Farms and I didn't know it was there, but I just saw the ground moving up and down.
Marie?
Well, when I was in one, I lived in three of them. One was at church and it didn't feel like anything. The other one was in my bed and was at church. And it was, I didn't feel it, but I could tell that it was because my legs didn't feel it.
Nicole?
And once when I was a baby, I lived in Carmel, and my brothers and sisters are older than me, and there was this earthquake, and the ground was moving up and down, and me and my brother were asleep taking our naps, and we were just calm. We didn't like feel anything, and one of my sisters, she jumped under the table. One of my other sisters jumped out the window, and one of my brothers jumped on the table.
Goodness, your sister who jumped under the table sure had the right idea. Let me tell you a little bit about what the earth looks like inside, and then we'll talk a little bit about why it moves. We're going to take a journey to the center of the earth, and we're going to look at the different parts that make up our world. The very outer piece is the crust, and the crust is about 4 miles thick, and it's generally the land that you stand on. It's all the land that we can see around us. But there's something else covering a lot of the earth. You may look at this globe. What else is covering a lot of the earth besides land? Daniel?
Water.
Lots and lots of water. In fact, more water than land. There's the land underneath the ocean floor is also part of the crust. So it's the land and the oceans, and the land underneath the ocean floor is the crust. One step in is called the mantle. And the mantle's been described as having the consistency of hot toothpaste, kind of gooey and oozy, and it's warm because it rests next to the core, which is the very innermost part of our earth, and the core is a very hot center of the earth. There's decaying materials in there, and they give off heat, and it heats this mantle, and the mantle gets very warm, and sometimes when the mantle gets very hot, it needs to escape, and we'll talk a little bit about what happens when that steam and heat needs to escape. I brought something that kind of reminded me of the earth. I have an egg, which I hard boiled, and the outermost part is pretty hard. Not real hard, but pretty hard. But we can crack it. And this is like the crust of the earth. If we take the crust off, we're left with this white part, and if I cut it in half, it looks pretty similar to the mantle and the core that we just talked about. And I cooked this egg this morning, so it's even warm in the center, just like the core of the earth. About 200 million years ago, scientists have speculated that all the land on Earth was in one body. There were no separate continents, which I know you've talked about this year in science, that all the land was joined, and they've given a name for this big landmass. It's called Pangea. Through the years, and we start off 200 million years and go to 180 and so on, the land masses have separated. And this theory is called continental drift. that the land masses have moved away from each other very, very slowly. But a little bit every year, the continents are moving away from one another. If I show you, this is the South American plate and the African plate. They almost look like a puzzle that fits together. They now are pretty far away from each other, but you can kind of see if you look that they almost look like a puzzle piece that could have at one time fit together, and they're very gradually through millions of years moving farther and farther away from each other. This globe has shown the different plates, and the plates are the areas on the Earth that have earthquake faults all around them. The largest plate is the Pacific plate. And California, it goes through the Pacific plate, and there's a lot of water in the Pacific plate. The reason that this is a very interesting plate to talk about is that 80% of the world's earthquakes occur along the rim of this plate, and 95% of the volcanoes in the world.
Before I read you a story, and in it the turtles with the land on their back is what caused the earthquakes. But we know that scientists have found that there's reasons that the earthquakes occur, and it's for what happens inside the earth. Have you ever seen a pot of water boiling? The water heats and it rises to the top. And it cools off there, and it goes right back down to the bottom of the pan to be heated again. Now this is what happens inside the earth. The core is very, very hot, and it heats the mantle. Now the crust, as we said before, sits on top of the mantle, kind of floats there. As the heat pushes the mantle hits the crust, and that's what causes the earth to move.
There are many things that we need to be aware of that can happen during an earthquake, and by being aware of them, we can help to prepare for them. We have some hands-on experiments, and we're going to divide you into 3 groups, and you can go to each station and learn some things about what's going to happen during an earthquake. At the end, we'll come together again and show you what you can do when the earth starts to shake.
Then we break the children into small groups for a hands-on demonstration using a simulator table, which simulates a fault, and a shaking table, which simulates the actual shaking during an earthquake. And the third table, we show them photographs of actual earthquakes that have happened in California over the last 25 years and the damage that has resulted. We call this the awareness part of the lesson, where we make them aware of what an earthquake can do.
This is called a shaking table, and I'm going to turn it on very slowly, and this will simulate what might happen in your house during a real earthquake. Watch the furniture very carefully. Move back a little bit, Katie. Wow. Now we had to crank this one by 26 times. Water tank.
That's off. The beds I don't think the beds would fall out of the house.
But they sure would move across the room, though.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much space. What was the first thing that fell?
The
Grandfather clock. Why do you think the grandfather clock fell first?
Because it wasn't to the wall.
It was very tall and thin, and it didn't have good balance, and it wasn't bolted to the wall. I think that the water tank fell second.
Yeah.
There's 2 reasons why that would be very dangerous. One is that it could hurt somebody.
And also the water tank could leak,
Yes.
and there could be a big flood.
And second, if there's an earthquake, an important thing to remember is that you may be at your house for a couple of days and not be able to go anywhere, and no one would be able to come and see you, and you may need that water to drink. So it would be important that you could bolt your water tank to the wall, and there's about 50 gallons of water in the usual water tank that's clean and usable, and you could drink that water.
Since it was hot water, you can get burned.
Yes, but it would cool down because you'd probably lose your power. I'm going to show you a couple other things on this shaker table.
Here.
Let me ask you an experiment. Who knows what this is?
Those are water tanks.
These are water tanks, right.
And those have a lot more water than
What does this look like? Teepees, that's a good one. Tops of buildings. Tops of buildings. How about a real famous building in San Francisco? Transamerica Pyramid? That's what it looks like to me. Which of these things do you think might fall first?
Water.
Why?
Because they have very thin bottoms. And they're not strapped on.
And also, all the weight of the water tower is at the top, not the bottom. So let's see what happens.
Steady there.
I bet it's the water. It might not be it. Yeah, right.
Yeah. See what happens?
Okay, this one fell first. Yeah, okay.
It's very important to keep things down low. And when we practice what you can do during an earthquake, remember that the lower you are to the ground, the safer you are.
And let's count the energy that we'll be needing in order to have this quake occur. Remember to watch the toothpicks, because that will see how much energy we're pushing.
Let me explain why. This has to sit right on top of the ground. And when the ground starts shaking,
Okay, well, we had some of our house fall before, but you can see what happened with the toothpicks and how much resistance they... Let's get this one set up and we'll try this one, okay?
Okay, now this is the picture of an earthquake in Coalinga. What happened to the front of the building in this picture? Right, and where did it all land? Well, Daniel, this is all the brick that was on the front of this building. Would it be a good idea to be running in and outside of the building during an earthquake? What could happen to you, Sarah? That's right. So the important rule is, if you're inside during an earthquake, stay inside. If you're outside during an earthquake, stay outside. Now, if you were in this apartment up here, where would be a safe place to protect yourself? Maggie?
In the door or under the...
See how the door is still standing? Even though the entire front of the building has fallen off, the doorway is a safe place to be.
the last part of the lesson, they come back in a group and we teach them how to be prepared for an earthquake. We have an actual earthquake drill where they practice duck and cover. We teach the correct method of duck and covering, which is putting one hand over your neck and one hand over your eyes and assuming a crouched position. We teach them that, and then we also teach them how to correctly stand in a door well to protect themselves.
Remember, there's a couple of the rules. If you're inside, stay inside. If you're outside, stay outside. There's falling debris or breaking glass, and you don't want to be around that. When we do our duck and cover, we have one hand over our eyes to protect our eyes. The other hand is behind our head, over our neck there. Now you want to crouch in a very compact position so that your center of gravity is very close to the ground. Everybody see? Now there's one final thing which is really important. You must do this quietly. If you were at school, Mrs. Aguilar might be needing to give you instructions. If everybody was talking, they couldn't hear. So it's real important to do this very quietly under your desk or under a table, whatever is available. Okay, everybody can see Mrs. Ivy and how she's crouching? Okay, we want to do a duck and cover. Now we're going to be playing a tape recording of the earthquake, and we want to even hear this tape playing while you go and do your duck and cover. Duck and cover. There's tables in the back. Somebody go to the tables in the back. Carefully, and you can hear the sound. This is a 1-minute earthquake.
should remember if you're at home is the door jamb. But if you're at school for an earthquake, since there's only one door and there's one teacher, Mrs. Aguilar would go into the door jamb, and she's going to show you how to stand in a door jamb. You put your hands against one side of the door, and you press the bottom half of your body against the back side of the door. And you stay there until the shaking stops. Don't just stand in the doorway not holding on to anything, because when the earth moves, you'll move right with it. Put your hands on one side of the door and press the bottom half of your body against the other side of the door. Mrs. Aguilar would be in this position, and if it happened at school, and you would go under your desk until she told you to come out. We'd like to thank you very much for your attention. You were a very good class. You paid very good attention, and I hope that you'll all remember what to do during an earthquake. Share some of this information with your friends, with your brothers and sisters, and with your parents. Mrs. Aguilar will be giving you a hazard coloring book that you can work on that will show you different things in your house that might be hazardous that you can share with your family. Thank you.
The actual thrust of the class is to empower a child to feel safe themselves in an earthquake, how they themselves can protect themselves during an earthquake. But we're hoping here at Walnut Acres that next year the Parent Faculty Club will provide some kind of future education and ongoing training for the children, because we just feel it's real important. And unfortunately, I don't think parents will take a real aggressive role in preparing their homes for an earthquake until perhaps it's too late. So we're hoping that through the children, the parents will learn.
Well, it certainly is a wonderful service that's provided to the community by the Junior League. And if any of you know of a school which would like to have this program brought to it in conjunction with local sponsorship, call the office of the Junior League, and that number will appear on the screen. Thank you very much, kiddo.
Thanks, Jan.